Hello and welcome to LoreDive, where we look into the lore of all of our favorite games. Today we are going right back into Dead by Daylight, this time looking at our first set of licensed survivors for the series. This includes Laurie Strode, William Bill Overbeck, Quentin Smith, and Detective David Tapp. Laurie Strode, the determined survivor. You never know what truly matters in life until you've realized it might end soon. Laurie is one of those who just wanted a quiet life in the suburbs, hanging out with friends, family, and maybe going on a date or two. Laurie was a typical teenager. You could have passed her on the street and not have thought twice. She did her homework and was liked by her friends, teachers, and family. But she is no longer that simple girl. A Halloween night of babysitting turned into something that would forever change the course of her young life. A knife cutting through the air, screams from afar, noises that play tricks with the mind. These things are made to completely destroy lesser minds. But not Laurie. She was made of something stronger, something that wouldn't give up. Unlike most of the survivors, there is no one definitive version of Laurie Strode, something she shares in common with her stalker, Michael Myers. Both have existed in multiple timelines, and these have differences. In one timeline, she is Michael Myers' sister. In another, she is not. We can't be certain which version of Laurie was pulled into the entity's procedural, but we can know when she was pulled. She was pulled that night when everything went wrong, and her life was changed forever. Laurie and her stalker have an abnormal bond with each other, and this bond has modified the procedural in a brand new way. Laurie has often been the obsession of serial killer Michael Myers, and due to this, both have pulled power based off of this relationship. For killers, they have received obsession perks. Each killer's obsession perk will change certain aspects of the procedural based on the interactions between the killer and their obsession. For Laurie, each of her perks play on this, and increase the likelihood that she will be the killer's obsession. Laurie's first perk is Sole Survivor. For better or worse, Laurie becomes stronger the more death there is around her. Each time one of her friends is killed, she becomes further shrouded from the entity's influence. The range that Laurie cannot be read by the killer's perks increases based on the distance she is from the killer. Laurie's second perk is Object of Obsession. Due to her past encounters with the Shape, Laurie has learned that she has a supernatural bond with killers. When Laurie is outside of the killer's terror radius, she will be able to see the killer's aura when looking in the killer's direction up to a maximum distance. As a side effect, however, the killer can see her as well if she is revealing their aura while they are facing her. Laurie's final perk is Decisive Strike. In an adrenaline-filled moment of terror, Laurie can often find what she needs. If Laurie has been taken off the hook, this perk becomes active. If she gets knocked down by the killer and is picked up within a certain time limit, she can use a skill check to stab the killer with whatever she can find. Doing this will stun the killer for up to 5 seconds, and will make Laurie the obsession if she wasn't before. Laurie is no stranger to horror, but the entity's garden is not what she's used to. However, it is possible, with her own experience and her unique abilities, that the survivors may have gained a powerful new ally, one that might be able to help them all escape for good. William Bill Overbeck, the Old Soldier. It took 2 tours in Vietnam, a handful of medals, a knee full of shrapnel, and an honorable discharge to get William Bill Overbeck to stop fighting and try and live a peaceful life. He hated it. After decades spent drifting aimlessly through dead-end jobs, Bill went in for routine surgery and woke up to find the world he knew was gone. A plague was turning normal people into mindless killing machines. Naturally, the first thing he did was fight his way back home and put on his uniform. Making his way through rural ghost towns and pitch-black forests, he found 3 other survivors, one of which became like a daughter to him, and together they fled from the infected hordes. In the end, Bill sacrificed himself to ensure their safety, and his friends were helpless to try and save him as he succumbed to the massive horde of the undead. Bill was left for dead. In his dying breaths, what remained of his spirit was taken, to be another pawn in the entity's game. Now, the experienced veteran assists the others as they all try to escape the procedurals alive. But one thing that he keeps from the others is that he has found the only thing he ever wanted: an enemy to fight. Bill's first perk is Left Behind. Bill is willing to get the job done, no matter the cost. If Bill is the last remaining survivor in a trial, he gains a bonus to repair speed for each remaining generator that is left in the procedural. A new aspect of the game, known as the in-game collapse, has ended up making this perk obsolete. While I won't be going into the details of the in-game collapse in this particular video, I did want to note this, as it is likely that this perk will be changed in the future. Bill's second perk is Borrowed Time. Bill is fueled with an unexpected energy when saving an ally from the hook while still in the killer's terror radius. Originally, this would allow him to pull a survivor off the hook once per match, giving both him and the survivor a window of time where if either player would have been put into a dying state, instead the effect Deep Wounds would be applied. Deep Wounds acts as a timer, and if a survivor does not mend themselves within the time frame, they will automatically get knocked into the dying state. This has been effectively blocked by the entity, as it no longer affects Bill when he's doing the unhooking. But as a side effect to the entity's interference, Bill is no longer restricted to only using the perk once per game. And as long as he unhooks the survivor while they are still within the killer's terror radius, he can apply the effect as many times as he needs to. Bill's final perk is Unbreakable. This is not Bill's first rodeo, and he has learned a few things about how to survive when things look their bleakest. When put into the dying state, Bill can recover at an accelerated rate. If he is not picked up by the killer, he will be able to heal himself from the dying state once per match. Bill helps his fellow survivors as they do their best to survive the killer's deadly dangers. If he fails to survive though, no big deal. He can always try again next time. He will, however, do what he can to save the others though, as, unlike him, most of them have an actual life to go back to. Quentin Smith, the resolute Dreamwalker. Quentin Smith and Nancy Holbrook were 2 of several children who were taught at Badham Preschool. While generally the children who went there were happy and normal, their parents began to notice odd things about their behavior, and injuries the children couldn't or wouldn't explain. Eventually, a young Nancy told her mother about Frederick Krueger, a man who took care of the school's grounds and played with the children, a man who had his own secret cave somewhere in the preschool. Taking matters into their own hands, the Elm Street parents burned Krueger alive, only to create something more horrible than they could ever have imagined. Krueger returned years later, hunting the Elm Street children down in the one place their parents couldn't protect them, in their dreams. Eventually, Quentin and Nancy remained the last 2 surviving children of Freddy Krueger's massacre, and together, they staged an elaborate trap to kill the dream demon for good. It looked like everything was going to be fine for the 2.
I'm just glad you're safe.
They were very wrong. When he heard that Nancy's mother had disappeared, Quentin knew instantly that their success had been short-lived. Although their plan had seemed to work flawlessly, Freddy Krueger had beaten death yet again. But Quentin wasn't about to give up. It may take many attempts, but he vowed that somehow they would find a way to beat Freddy, once and for all, And if he didn't, it would only be a matter of time before Freddy would win and Nancy would be lost. Someone like Quentin never attracted attention at the library, no matter how many strange texts he requested. He devoured all of the information he could on shared dream worlds, lucid dreaming, and the methods to control the dream space. Forcing himself to stay awake on a steady diet of pills and energy drinks, he searched through dusty volumes, finding myths about the demons that live in dreams, trapping their victims in limbo and feeding off their terror. He worked quickly as he knew that Freddy would soon be coming for him. It wasn't long before that moment arrived, and Freddy began appearing in his dreams. He stayed at the periphery at first, taunting Quentin, seemingly hoping to tire him out. Using all that he had learned, Quentin was able to see the flaws in the dreams, cracks where escape routes could be formed. He tested this skill carefully, not wanting to show his hand, hoping that it would give him some kind of advantage that he could use to defeat Freddy. Then one night, he found himself in a familiar environment, Badham Preschool. Freddy had tired of taunting and had finally decided to end it. Quentin ran through the school, his quick eyes scanning something that could be useful in the maze of rooms. He found a can of paint thinner and quickly formulated a plan, acting as the lure to draw Freddy into the right position. And there he was, claws scraping on metal, as he closed in for the kill. Quentin allowed himself to enjoy the surprise on Freddy's face as the corridor ignited, and then he was away, running through the building, heading for the exit he knew existed. If he harried Freddy, weakening him, and then escaped the dream, surely that would defeat him over time. Before his eyes, however, the cracks in the dream closed, and his escape route was blocked. He was in Freddy's secret room again, and there was nowhere to run. Freddy closed in, a broad grin across his ruined face. Quentin was consumed with the need to see this man finally obliterated. He wished it had been him, not his father, who threw the gas can that ended Kruger's life. That it had been him who had cut Freddy's throat. Perhaps that desire would be enough. This was a realm of the mind, after all. He let it consume him, concentrating all his thoughts on wishing Freddy gone. But in a moment, his vision was obscured with rolling tendrils of fog, and when it cleared, he was somewhere else. In another dream? If so, it wasn't his. It felt cold and unfamiliar. A flickering drew his attention, and he realized he was by a campfire, and he wasn't alone. Other people were trapped here too, and they needed his help. Quentin's bout with the nightmare of Elm Street has shaped him in ways he never thought possible, allowing him to pull some unique perks suited to face the Dream Demon. Quentin's first perk is Wake Up. Quentin's true potential appears when success is near. With Wake Up, Quentin will be able to see the aura of exit gates that are within 128 meters of him, after all of the generators have been completed. Once he has reached the exit gates, he will also be able to open them faster than normal. If Quentin is opening an exit gate, other survivors will also be able to see his silhouette, as long as they are within a 128 meter range of him. Quentin's second perk is Pharmacy. Quentin has an uncanny ability to find medicine. With Pharmacy, Quentin searches through chests faster and more quietly than normal. Along with this, the first chest that Quentin opens is guaranteed to have an emergency medical kit inside. Quentin's final perk is Vigil. Quentin's caring nature allows him to look over his friends in even the most dire of situations. Any allies that are within an 8-meter range of him recover from exhaustion, hemorrhage, mangled, hindered, and blindness faster than normal. While Nancy is never far away in Quentin's mind, he now has new souls to try and save, and new nightmares to face, ones that he is determined to defeat and learn from. And maybe, if he escapes this realm alive, he'll have found a way to kill Freddy Krueger for good. Detective David Tapp, the obsessed detective. Detective David Tapp was one of the good guys. His determination to see killers brought to justice and their victims avenged led him through a long and respected career. When he first saw the details of the Jigsaw case, it seemed like many others. More grisly and macabre for sure, but just another lunatic with a penchant for drama, who would soon be behind bars. A stroke of insight brought Tapp and his partner, Detective Stephen Singh, to an abandoned mannequin factory where they discovered Jigsaw's lair. They apprehended the man, but he managed to escape before being unmasked, slashing Tapp's throat as he did so. Leaving his partner, Singh went in pursuit, but fell victim to a booby trap. Tapp had failed to go by the book on this one occasion, entering the lair without a warrant, and it had resulted in a detective's death. He was discharged from the force and left with a ruined throat and crippling guilt. He channeled that guilt into an obsession. He would find the killer, stop the murders, vindicate himself, and avenge his friend and colleague. Following the evidence trail brought him to Dr. Lawrence Gordon, and he staked out the doctor's apartment, sure that he would find some evidence of guilt. Then he saw a stranger at Gordon's window and heard gunshots. Tapp confronted him and the man fled, with the pursuit leading to an industrial building. Tapp's age caught up with him, and a fight that he would have easily won in his younger days ended with Tapp taking a bullet to the chest. Slumping to the floor, he saw only failure. He had failed his partner and the other victims. Whoever the killer was, Tapp had been unable to stop them. More would die, and it would be his fault. So, he let the rage and guilt consume him and closed his eyes for the final time. Beneath him, the concrete floor softened. He dug his fingers into the ground, feeling dirt and leaves. Where his chest had been wet with blood, the shirt was now dry, and the pain was gone. His eyes opened into the darkened sky, and the jagged, searching fingers of branches. Screams echoed through the forest, and a new determination filled him. His mind was clear for the first time in months. Victims needed to be avenged. Killers thwarted. He didn't know what this place was, but he was still a cop, and he always would be. And now, he had a job to do. David Tapp's first perk is tenacity. As long as he has breath in his body, nothing is going to stop the detective. Ferocious in the most dire of circumstances, when David Tapp is downed, he will be able to crawl faster than normal, while recovering at the same time. Tapp's second perk is Detective's Hunch. Being a detective has led Tapp to have the uncanny ability to suss out information that would normally be unavailable. With Detective's Hunch, the auras of all generators, totems, and chests will be revealed to him whenever a generator has been completed. If he is also holding a map, these items will be added to the map as well. Tapp's final perk is Stakeout. Tapp peaks highest while under pressure. For each 15 seconds that Tapp remains within the killer's terror radius, he will receive a token up to a cap. If Tapp makes what would normally be a good skill check while having a token in Stakeout, it will be considered a great skill check instead. This will also work against Hex Ruin, making a bad Hex check into a good Hex check. David Tapp has spent too much time in the shadows, too much time failing to save those who needed saving. Even if he is dead in the world he came from, he still has an opportunity to save the others here. The other survivors, and maybe, just maybe, someone else from his past can also be saved as well. Well, that's it for this episode of LoreDive. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Next time, I'm going to be going into the next set of... What do you want?
Look who's shitting in the tall grass.
Ugh. Fine.
Groovy.
Ashley Joanna Williams. Some douche nozzle. The hero we didn't need. Ash Williams. The alone survivor. During a weekend at a cabin with friends, Ash Williams uncovered the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead. and awoke something dark in the woods. Evil possessed his friends, whom he was forced to kill, and he lost his right hand, which he sawed off. For the next 30 years, Ash ran from his past, working at a value department store and seducing women in dive bars. But he screwed up one night while being high, and he read from the Necronomicon to impress a woman. Evil found him once more, wrecking the life of those around him. But his co-workers, Pablo, who was raised by a shaman, and Kelly, who was orphaned by the Deadites, helped him to put up a fight. Since defeating a gang of Deadites a week ago, he had been in a perpetual state of hangover. While wandering a corridor in his boxers, he heard a beautiful voice of a woman singing, sensual and inviting. He strode towards the voice, which led to a public locker room. As Ash pushed open the door, the singing stopped. There was a rustling of curtains. He called out, entering the changing room. His voice reverberated in the moldy tile walls. He pressed on, reaching a shower that was still dripping wet. Cold, humid fingers ran down his bare back, and he turned around. A woman stood, naked, her skin glistening in the morning light that streamed from the high windows. Ash recognized her instantly. Linda Emery, one of his former high school flings. They had gotten back together years later while saving their hometown from evil, but he had ended their relationship, preferring to indulge freely in his newfound popularity. Linda winked at Ash, who closed the distance between them. What was she doing here? A sharp blade dug into his hand, making him jump back. Linda slid a finger across the edge of her blade, collecting Ash's blood on her fingertip. She smiled and her skin shriveled, her hair faded, and her curves sagged, aging decades older in a matter of seconds. She attacked Ash, who poorly managed to block, being half naked. Every blow she delivered earned him a new wound. She slashed his bad knee and he fell over to the floor. As she jumped on top of him, Ash shrieked in disgust. Knocking the knife out of her grasp, her varicose hands wrapped around his neck, strangling him. Gasping, he poked her in the eyes. The elderly woman winced, weakening her hold, and Ash elbowed her in the face, knocking her back. He rolled over and grabbed the knife on the floor. Just as he was about to plant it in her chest, he stopped. There was something else he wanted more. He pressed the blade against her throat. "Let's make a deal, demon. In exchange for not killing you, you are going to portal me back to my friends." The demon agreed. She began reciting an incantation and instructed Ash to repeat after her, which he failed to manage. When nothing happened, Ash threatened the demon, who argued back, blaming his poor pronunciation. Their combined exchange of the Sumerian words triggered a hiss from the shower behind them. The wet tiled floor darkened and the pipes burst. A whirlpool of dirty water, shower curtains, and toilet paper swallowed the demon, while Ash tried his best to hold onto a locker door, before eventually losing his grip. Ash landed flat on his chest in the realm of the entity, sputtering grass. Thankfully for us, the entity had decided to give him clothes. As he looked around, his grin fell. Based on what he saw, he could tell two things. One, there wasn't a bar for miles. He was going to need his shotgun and chainsaw, both of which he now lacked. And as he started to walk towards a glinting light ahead of him, he could hear a scream ripple through the trees. Ash's first ability is Flip-Flop. Ash has the uncanny ability to escape that which would normally be considered impossible. While in the dying state, 50% of Ash's recovery progression is converted into wiggle progression when he is picked up by the killer, making it easier to escape their grasp. Ash's second perk is Buckle Up. Ash has dealt with killers and monsters more times than he cares to recall, giving him the ability to prepare for what the killer's next actions may be. Whenever Ash heals a survivor from the dying state to the injured state, both he and the healed survivor will be able to see the killer's aura for a short duration. Ash's final perk is Medal of Man. Ash is used to having a bullseye on his back, and has found a way to work around it. With the Medal of Man, Ash must earn 3 protection hit score events, either by saving a survivor from the hook, or by taking a hit for them. After this has happened 3 times, Medal of Man will activate. Once activated, if Ash would be brought into the dying status from the injured status, the damage he would have received will instead be ignored. As a side effect, however, he will permanently have his aura revealed when he is a certain distance away from the killer, until he is finally knocked back into the dying status. Ash may not be everyone's cup of tea, but he is a stubborn and confident survivor who has dealt with supernatural creatures in the past. With his assistants, along with Laurie, Bill, Quentin, and Tapp, the survivors may soon have the ability to find a way out of the entity's overbearing clutches. And now, for real this time, thank you for watching this episode of Dead by Daylight. I'm sorry that this took a while to get out there. I had to go back and re-record all of the audio after I got a new microphone, since there were certain parts that needed to be re-recorded and it just sounded too different using one mic and then another. Next time, of course, we will be seeing the round of licensed killers, so that will be Michael Myers, Leatherface, Freddy Krueger, Amanda Young, and Ghostface. That's right, I'm going to do all 5 just like I did all 5 in this one. After that, the Resident Evil LoreDive will be up, and the Kingdom Hearts retrospective should also be up during that time, so I hope you'll be able to enjoy all of those videos as well. Let me know if there are any other LoreDive videos that you might like to see in the future, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.